All right, so let's get on with chapter 3 now. This chapter is selfless service. So, what I'm going to do actually, I'm going to go through the chapter, whatever I have underlined, we will talk about, and then later we'll summarize it with the slide with the specific points. Okay. So, you'll see the selfless service is such a big chapter of the Gita because that's one of the main teachings of the Gita, that selfish action which is all centered around me, mine, around gain for me, mine, that is the greatest enemy of any spiritual aspirant. And Krishna will tell us why this is in this chapter and the chapters to come. But here he tells us how to be free from this selfish affliction. So in the beginning of the chapter, Arjun is asking Krishna, you said like the path of knowledge is greater than the path of action. Then why do you still ask me to engage in this war? So Krishna says, one who shirks action does not attain freedom. No one can gain perfection by abstaining from work. So so our job is not to renounce action. He says, indeed, there is no one who rests even for an instant. All creatures are driven to action by their own nature. Ramana Maharshi said the same thing. He said, the moment the sun rises, all all beings, they engage in their work based on their own nature and then eventually rest. So it's just like in the nature of whatever form you have taken to perform its duties and its work. Our job is not to avoid that action, it's to do that action as a sense with a sense of duty without selfish motive. And it's so different than how we are used to living, because we are used to living we are used to doing everything with selfish motive. So that is how we purify our mind and become more and more spiritual or holy, empty and pure. So, and he also says, those who abstain from action while still dwelling on selfish desires and of sensual pleasure, they cannot be called sincere spiritual seekers. So Krishna says, fulfill all your duties. Action is better than inaction. Even to maintain your body, Arjuna, you're obliged to act. Selfish action imprisons the world. Act selflessly without any thought of personal profit. Just take a moment to even contemplate how freeing it would be to do your work without being so attached to the fruits of your labor. Now, when it comes to our modern age, like you may have the concern, oh, can I no longer have any goals or anything like that? The way that I've tried to balance this out while practicing this teaching, like to the best of my ability, while also still, not feeling conflicted in my own like personal journey. I so you can have goals, you can have a sense of like you can have a trajectory of where you want your life to go, but understand that that is just like your plan. Ultimately, do your work in this way, like do your best work, but completely be non-attached to what that work must bring you. So of course, like when you create a goal, it is maybe like a little selfish in nature, because it's like, of course, you want to create well-being for yourself. So when creating goals, don't only think of yourself, think of also the ones who you're going to serve with your work. For example, when I create goals for my work, of course, there will like my work is in a way also for my own well-being and what I like to do. But I at the same time think of you and what you want most from me, and how best I can serve you. The how I run my business, and yeah, it is a business in a way, and I'm very blessed to do that. I have three driving questions I have three questions which drive my business, and I have them written down on my board so I never forget them. Anytime I'm confused about where to take my work, what to do, I always look at these three questions, and they help me to not just work for myself, but for the ones I serve. Those questions are: number one, how can I be of greatest service to the spiritual community? Number two, how can I make other people's spiritual path easier, simpler? And number three, how can I help people more easily discover their real being? Because ultimately, that is my goal with my work, to help more and more people come to the recognition of their formless nature. So, as long as I'm doing my work with those three questions driving it, then I know that, hey, I'm not just working for my own selfish interest. And like, if I do notice that, when you do notice yourself like working for selfish interest, which you will, it is not something to feel guilty about or be self judgmental about. Observe that, and only through observing it, you overcome it. Sometimes you will still want to engage in those motives, selfish motives. If you can't help yourself engage in it, chase whatever, personal gain you're chasing, and learn from that journey. Taste the fruits of your labor, whether pleasurable or painful, and through it you will also grow. But we have to observe these selfish motives within ourselves and how the ego only seeks to serve itself, everything for its own benefit. Only then do we start to really grow in the understanding of how dysfunctional that is, and how actually that is the cause of our misery and why we're always anxious. Whereas selfless action, it releases that anxiety. It helps us come to a state of peace. As Krishna says here, selfish action imprisons the world. We imprison our own self into illusion, into misery through selfish action. So selfless action releases our bonds. So Krishna says here, through selfless action, selfless service, you will always be fruitful and find the fulfillment of your desires. How crazy is that? If anything, what makes us even more ready to fulfill our purpose, our destiny, our dharma, is selfless service. The mind, it doesn't make sense to the mind. Mind thinks I'm going to hold on to my selfish motives, to my desire for well-being, and attach that to my actions so that I can gain those things. But only by releasing attachment to those things, the Lord gives them to us more and more naturally. But one who is non attached then can enjoy even those blessings without further attachment. One who is attached to results, even when he or she gets those results, they are miserable because they are constantly anxious about when they will be taken away, or when their good fortune will turn into bad fortune. And, they just want more and more. They're just attached to more and other things. I noticed this in myself so many times in my journey. That's what made me more and more willing to follow these words. I saw that, hey, selfish attachment, selfish motives are not the way. They may create material success, but they do not create happiness or fulfillment. And material success just is not the goal of this life. It is like I used to I used to read this book when I was in my like manifestation phase. Like I used to love the create your own reality teachings. There was this book called Reality Transurfing. And he used to say that money and success are not the goal. They are just, what do you say? The term was accompanied attributes. So in this way also, like the fruits of your labor and the fulfillment of your desires, if the Lord grants them to you, is just accompanied attributes. Be grateful for them, stay humble, Enjoy them while they last, but do not attach yourself to them ever. Otherwise, once again, you will start the cycle of bondage. So Krishna says, those who realize the self are always satisfied. So as we tread this path of selfless service, we start to realize ourself and we find fulfillment in that. Having found the source of joy and fulfillment, they no longer seek happiness from the external world. They have nothing to gain or lose by any action. Neither people nor things can affect their security. How beautiful. When we are attached to the fruits of our action, we are all our state of happiness, security, fulfillment is always tied to the outside. Through selfless service, we become unconditionally fulfilled, happy, peaceful, secure, stable. And you can notice all the shreds of anxiety within your mind are because you are worried about the outside, right? So see how like when you become not attached to what your life must look like and where it may go, then you start to become more and more free. Freedom does not mean having the circumstances that you want. Freedom means not being dependent on where your life must go and what your circumstances must look like. So Krishna says, strive constantly to serve the welfare of the world. By devotion to selfless work, one attains the supreme goal of life. Do your work with the welfare of others always in mind. So, Krishna is not obsessed with the welfare of the world. He is sharing the path of selfless service to us as a means to purify our mind of illusion, of ego. The goal of selfless work is wisdom, is self realization, not just the betterment of the world. Again, that is just an accompanied attribute. That is not the goal. Ultimately, this is all still illusion. So Krishna is not obsessed with, oh, everybody must have great welfare. Krishna is, Krishna is guiding us to help us realize the truth of who we are. And selfless work is a means, a vehicle through which we purify the mind of ego. And Krishna says that right here. He says, there's nothing in the three worlds for me to gain, nor is there anything I do not have. Krishna is speaking as your true nature. He's speaking as your true self. There's nothing in this world for me to gain, and there's nothing I already do not have. And he says, I continue to act, but I am not driven by any need of my own. Like the sun which arises in the morning. Of course, the sun continues to act, but it's not driven by any need of its own. If anything, it nourishes everything on this planet, but it's not driven by anything on any need of its own. Just an example. The ignorant work for their own profit, Arjuna. The wise work for the welfare of the world without thought for themselves. So I found in my practice, like I try my best to attain this. You continue to observe your own personal weakness. And I observe this within myself. Like sometimes the mind, chasing more gain or this or that, always just like about, oh, what can I have? And I try to strive to be like this. Uh, I strive to be like the wise person that Krishna is describing in these teachings. I have found that the more I've come to realize this truth, the truth of these teachings, and the more I've come to practice them, the more free I have become within. I still have my weaknesses, and this is constantly work for me too. So I'm in no way am I saying that I'm perfect in this, but through practicing it, I have started to realize its truthfulness so much more. And I continue to strive to be like the wise person Krishna describes in these teachings. So Krishna says, perform all work carefully, guided by compassion. All actions are performed by the gunas of Prakriti. Deluded by identification with the ego, a person thinks, I am the doer. But the illumined man or woman understands the domain of the gunas and is not attached. Such people know that the gunas interact with each other. They do not claim to be the doer. So this is going to be a little confusing if you don't know the term. It's actually pronounced gun, and we're going to say gunas. So there are three. So the gunas are the qualities of all experience, physical and mental, physical and subtle. There are three gun: the sattva gun, rajas, and tamas. Sattva means goodness, light, purity. Rajas means passion, activity, energy. And tamas means darkness, ignorance, and inertia. So our spiritual progress, spiritual evolution goes from tamas, right? Darkness, ignorance, inertia, towards rajas, passion, activity, energy, right? You go from weak ego and like a state of like victimhood, darkness, to a state of empowerment, motivity, passion, selfish seeking, towards purity, right? Sattva, goodness, light, purity. All of matter and all of mind, all objects, all experience is made up of these three qualities in some sort of balance. So our job, our spiritual evolution, like before tamas and rajas are dominating and sattva is very dormant. Through our spiritual practice, as we purify the mind, what is being purified? Tamas and rajas, the qualities of darkness, ignorance, and motivity, selfish passion, they are decreasing, and sattva is rising, becoming more and more dominant. That is what completely changes you as a person also. You know, it changes your likes, your dislikes, your behaviors, your mannerisms, your personality, what you enjoy. Sattva becomes dominant. That is what we can call like a truly spiritual and holy person. And I mean, I don't want you to think like, oh, like, you know, your image of a holy spiritual person. A spiritual person is a simple person, you know, is a person who lives according to the word of God, to the word of all these teachings. That you are a spiritual person, you know, like now we're just working. The spiritual person is working to purify the mind of rajas and tamas and grow in sattva, purity, goodness, light, clarity, wisdom. So he says, you know, like the whole workings of manifestation and physical reality is just the gun interacting with each other. We feel like we are the doer of all of these things, but it's just actually the gun interacting with each other. So he says, deluded by identification with the ego, a person thinks I am the doer, but the illumined man or woman understands the domain of the gun and is not attached. Such people know that the gun interact with each other and they do not claim to be the doer because they are growing in the understanding of who they are beyond the three gun, which is the Atma, or call it soul, or that spark of the divine, their true formless nature. You know, as we discuss in our school all the time, it is the spaciousness in which the three gun interact. Just like, for example, the now, the now, the now, the present is like itself formless. It's not a thing, and it's not affected by the workings of the gun of all the experience. So so many, you know, thousands and thousands of years and all this activity and crazy things may happen in experience, but it never affects the present because the present is like beyond the capacity to be affected by the workings of experience. So just like that, you are beyond the operation of the gun. Don't identify with anything in experience. And he said, like, those who are deluded by the operation of the gun become attached to the results of their action. Those who understand these truths, oh, sorry. So that one is, we don't have to go into that. Those who live in accordance with these divine laws, without complaining, firmly established in faith, are released from karma. Those who violate these laws, criticizing and complaining, are utterly deluded and are the cause of their own suffering. So Krishna says, even the wise act within the limitations of experience, but they still act. But they act without selfish motive, whereas the ignorant person acts with selfish motive and attached to the fruits of his labor. The senses have been conditioned by attraction to the pleasant and aversion to the unpleasant. Do not be ruled by them. They are obstacles in your path, right? This theme comes up all the time in these teachings, especially in the Buddha's teachings. Attraction to the pleasant, aversion to the unpleasant is the root of all suffering. Krishna says, do not be ruled by them. They are obstacles in your path. And Krishna also brings up dharma once again here. He said it's better to strive in one's own dharma than to succeed in the dharma of another. Nothing is ever lost in following one's own dharma, but competition in another's dharma breeds fear and insecurity. So whatever it is your theme in this life, fulfill that theme, you know, fulfill your duties, your obligations. That's your dharma. Don't try to compare yourself to others and other people's paths. Like, stop trying to live somebody else's life. Look within yourself, see what is most natural and authentic to you, and live that life. Fulfill your responsibilities, your duties without selfish attachment. That is your path of spiritual perfection, self realization, and ultimately also your personal happiness. So if you keep trying to live someone else's life, trying to succeed in somebody else's dharma, it only breeds fear and insecurity. That is the state of the world nowadays, especially, right? Because like all this Instagram and social media, and we see people living all these crazy lives and of like material success, and what we see we want. And so we shouldn't just be deluded by like comparing ourselves to others and wanting what others have. Try to succeed in your own dharma, meaning like live your duties, your responsibilities, what you feel like your purpose here is here personally. Fulfill those responsibilities, and you become clear on that more and more through practicing these teachings. Whatever work you are in now, do it without selfish attachment. You know, through the practice of meditation, selfless action, just practicing all of these teachings that we talk about all the time, you grow in clarity of what your dharma is. And then, you know, you're able to even fulfill those duties more and more truly, more and more authentically. So Krishna says, it is selfish desire and anger arising from the gun of rajas. These are the appetites and evils which threaten a person in this life. Keep that in mind. So this one is really important, okay? Just as a fire is covered by smoke and a mirror is obscured by dust, just as the embryo rests deep within the womb, knowledge is hidden by selfish desire. Hidden, Arjun, by this unquenchable fire for self satisfaction, the inveterate enemy of the wise. So, see how much Krishna is emphasizing that selfish desire is what hides all spiritual knowledge. It will keep us entangled in the world, lost in ego, and the apparent reality of the world we perceive. Knowledge is hidden by selfish desire, hidden, Arjuna, by this unquenchable fire for self satisfaction. Unquenchable fire for self satisfaction. That is the inveterate enemy of the wise. I have this totally underlined and like circled and everything because this is a very one of the most important paragraphs in this entire chapter, in my opinion. So he says, the senses are higher than the body, the mind is higher than the senses, and above the mind is the intellect. Above the intellect is the Atma or self. Thus, knowing that which is supreme, let the Atma rule the ego, right? Let the presence or the presence of self rule the ego. Discover the real subject of experience. Use your mighty arms to slay the fierce enemy that is selfish desire. That is the last statement of this chapter. Use your mighty arms to slay the fierce enemy that is selfish desire. So let's quickly cover what I thought were some of the most important points in this chapter. Let me share my screen with you. Whoops, I made a mistake here. This is chapter 3. All right. So we covered work without attachment to the fruits of your labor. Simple, practical advice. Selfish desire is the greatest enemy of the spiritual seeker. It is the veil which keeps knowledge hidden. Know this, test it out if you must find the truth in it. You know, hearing this again and again, your mind will keep resisting it. It'll keep being attached to selfish motives. So chase those selfish motives and see how you are completely restless when you chase those selfish motives and you completely get lost in the world. It is the veil which keeps knowledge hidden. So Krishna says, do your work with the welfare of others always in mind and strive constantly to serve the welfare of the world. Okay, so don't only work for your own welfare, do your work with the welfare of others in mind. That is ultimately the whole purpose of work. All work, we all work to serve each other, you know, in different ways. All of existence works to serve, all forms work to serve other forms. That's love. It's all, this whole creation is bound by love, and work is an expression of that. Everybody, everything serving each other, not itself. Act without believing yourself to be the doer. You are beyond the realm of the gun. Okay. It is better to fail in your own dharma than to compete and succeed in the dharma of another. Also remember this. So that is it for chapter 3. If you have any comments or you wish to ask any question down below, feel free to do so. See you next time.